They say love is blind, but betrayal has perfect vision. My wife looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't enough, that I'd never be enough for her world of power suits and penthouse views. She walked out that door with her CEO lover, probably laughing about the maintenance man she was leaving behind. What she didn't know was that the invisible man fixing her toilets had been building an empire in silence, and the company she thought she owned. It was about to become mine. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're from in the comments, because what I did next changed everything. The apartment smelled like her perfume. Even now, 3 hours after Evelyn left, I could still catch hints of it in the air. That expensive French scent she wore, the one that cost more than I made in a week. I stood in the kitchen, my work boots still on, staring at the empty spot where her suitcase used to sit. She was gone. My wife was gone. The words, on, didn't feel real yet. They floated in my head like something I'd heard on TV, not something that just happened in my own living room. I looked down at my hands. They were still dirty from work, streaked with grease and dust from crawling under the HVAC units at her company's headquarters. Our company's headquarters, I used to say. But that was a lie I told myself. It was never ours. It was hers. Her family's money, her name on the building, her world. I was just the guy who fixed the air conditioning. The kitchen was too quiet. I opened the fridge and pulled out the chicken I'd planned to cook for dinner. For us, for two. Old habits die hard. I'd been making dinner for her every night for 4 years. 4 years of marriage, 6 years together total. She used to love my cooking, or at least, she said she did. I turned on the stove and started prepping the chicken, cutting it into strips, the way she liked it. My hands moved automatically while my brain tried to catch up with what just happened. I'm leaving, Marcus. That's what she said. Just like that. No tears, no shaking voice. She sat on the edge of our white leather couch, the one her mother picked out, and said those 3 words like she was announcing a business decision. I've grown beyond this. This. She said this, like our marriage was a phase, like I was a hobby she'd outgrown. I pressed the chicken into the hot pan. It sizzled and popped. The sound filled the empty apartment. She'd been sitting there in her designer suit, the gray one that probably cost $3,000. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that tight bun she always wore to the office. She looked perfect. Cold and perfect. You're a good man, Marcus. You are. But I need more. More than me. She didn't say it, but I heard it anyway. I flipped the chicken and reached for the seasonings. My phone buzzed on the counter. I ignored it. Probably my mom. She always knew when something was wrong. Had some kind of sixth sense for when I was hurting. The thing is, I should have seen this coming. All the signs were there. I just didn't want to look at them. Like how she stopped introducing me at company events 6 months ago. She'd bring me along, sure. But then she'd drift away into conversations with other executives, other CEOs, other people who mattered. And I'd stand there in my one good suit, the same suit I'd worn to our wedding, holding a glass of champagne I didn't want, watching her laugh at jokes I couldn't hear. Or how she started correcting my grammar at dinner. You mean, he and I, Marcus? It's, well, not good. Try not to use so much slang. Little cuts, small adjustments, fixing me like I was another broken system in her building. The chicken was done. I plated it with rice and vegetables, then sat down at our glass dining table. Her seat was empty. I looked at it for a long moment, then started eating. The food tasted like nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time, I checked it. Mom, call me when you can, baby. I put the phone face down on the table. I couldn't talk to her yet. Couldn't say the words out loud. Once I said them, they'd be real. Evelyn left me. My wife left me. The woman I thought I'd spend my life with looked at me today and decided I wasn't enough. Wasn't ever enough. I finished eating, washed my plate, and walked back into the living room. Everything in here was hers: the couch, the art on the walls, paintings I didn't understand but she said were important, the coffee table made of some kind of reclaimed wood from Italy, the rug that cost more than my truck. None of it felt like home. It never did. I'd moved into this place when we got married. Evelyn inherited it from her grandmother, a penthouse condo in the heart of downtown, 18 floors up, floor to ceiling windows, views of the whole city. She grew up in places like this. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom and sister, sharing a bathroom and hearing our neighbors through the walls. I should have known better. I should have known that love doesn't erase that kind of difference, doesn't bridge that kind of gap. But I was young and stupid and in love. And when Evelyn Hart looked at me with those blue eyes and said she wanted forever, I believed her. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. The lights were starting to come on as the sun dropped behind the buildings. Somewhere down there, Evelyn was with him. Richard Cole, the CEO of the company she'd been consulting with for the past 8 months. I saw him today, saw him waiting in the car when she left. She didn't even try to hide it. When I'd walked her down to the lobby, because even in the middle of a divorce, I'm still the kind of man who walks his wife to the door, there was a black luxury sedan waiting at the curb. The driver opened the back door, and there he was, Richard, sitting there in his expensive suit, looking at his phone like he was bored. Evelyn didn't say goodbye. She got in the car, and the door closed. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching the car pull away, and I felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart, something deeper than that, something that held me together. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. Thomas, got your message. Coffee tomorrow? Thomas Reed, my mom's financial advisor, the man who'd helped me make sense of the money my grandfather left me when he died 5 years ago. Nobody knew about that money. Not Evelyn, not her family, not anyone. Grandpa was a quiet man, worked as a janitor his whole life, saved every penny, invested careful and smart. When he died, he left me and my sister $2 million each. I'd never told Evelyn about it, not because I was hiding it, but because by the time we got serious, I'd already put it all into a trust my mom helped me set up. It was supposed to be for our future, for kids, for emergencies, for days like today. I texted Thomas back. Yes. 7 a.m. Same place. I needed to think, needed to understand what came next. The apartment felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls were closing in. I grabbed my keys and left. I drove with no destination in mind, just drove. The city blurred past my windows, restaurants, shops, people living their normal lives. My truck was old but reliable. A Ford F-150 I'd bought used 7 years ago. Evelyn hated it, said it didn't match the building, asked why I didn't just get something newer, something cleaner. Because this truck was mine. I paid for it. Every dent and scratch told a story. I ended up at my mom's house without planning to. My hands just turned the wheel that direction. Muscle memory. She lived in the same neighborhood I grew up in. A quiet street with small houses and chain-link fences. Her porch light was on. It was always on. She kept it on for me and my sister, even though we were grown now. Even though we had our own lives. I parked and sat in the truck for a minute, staring at the house. The front door opened, and there she was, Naomi Hill, 58 years old, barely 5 feet tall, wearing her reading glasses and a cardigan. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, waiting. She knew. Of course she knew. I got out of the truck and walked up the path. She didn't say anything, just opened her arms. I bent down and let her hug me, and for the first time since Evelyn said those words, I felt something loosen in my chest. Come inside, baby, Mom said quietly. Her living room smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. She'd been baking, probably cookies for the church fundraiser. She always had her hands in something, cooking, sewing, organizing. Staying busy kept her mind off missing Dad. He'd been gone 10 years now, but she still wore her wedding ring. I sat on the couch, the same couch I'd sat on as a kid, watching cartoons on Saturday mornings. Mom disappeared into the kitchen and came back with 2 cups of tea. You gonna tell me, or do I have to guess? She asked, settling into her chair. She left, I said. My voice sounded hollow. Evelyn left. Mom sipped her tea. Didn't look surprised, didn't look angry, just nodded slowly. I see. That's it? I see? What do you want me to say, Marcus? She set her cup down. I'm not gonna sit here and act shocked. I've been watching this happen for 2 years. You never said anything. Wasn't my place. She looked at me over her glasses. You're a grown man. You make your own choices. But I knew. I knew that girl wasn't built for the long road. I leaned back and closed my eyes. I thought she loved me. Maybe she did, in her way. Mom's voice was gentle but firm. But love isn't enough when someone's ashamed of who you are. Those words hit me like a punch. She wasn't ashamed. Baby. Mom leaned forward. She corrected your grammar at my dinner table, in front of your family. She did it with a smile, but she did it. I remembered that night, Thanksgiving, 2 years ago. I'd been telling a story about work and Evelyn had interrupted me mid-sentence. He means my coworkers and I, not me and my coworkers. Everyone had gone quiet. My sister's face had tightened. My uncle had looked down at his plate, and I just laughed it off like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. She wanted you to be someone else, Mom said. Wanted you to talk different, act different, be different. That's not love, Marcus. That's a project. I opened my eyes. So, what do I do now? Mom studied me for a long moment. That depends. Are you asking me how to get her back? Or are you asking me how to move forward? I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure which question I was asking. Do you still trust yourself? Mom asked softly. What? Do you trust yourself, Marcus? Your judgment, your worth, your strength. She picked up her tea again. Because if you do, then you already know what to do next. And if you don't, then no answer I give you will matter. I sat there in my mom's living room, the same living room where she'd raised me, where she'd taught me right from wrong, where she'd held me when Dad died, and I realized something. I did know what to do next. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. I stayed at Mom's until late, then drove back to the condo. The building's lobby was empty except for the night security guard. He nodded at me as I passed. Did he know? Did everyone know? The elevator ride up to the 18th floor felt longer than usual. When I stepped inside the apartment, the silence hit me again. Louder this time. I didn't turn on the lights, just walked to the bedroom and lay down on top of the covers, still in my work clothes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and thought about tomorrow, about Thomas, about the company, about the numbers I'd been looking at for months now, numbers that didn't quite add up, expenses that seemed too high, contracts that seemed too convenient. I'd never said anything to Evelyn. It wasn't my business. I was just the facilities guy, just the husband who fixed the broken things while she ran the empire. But I'd noticed. I always noticed. My phone lit up on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Don't think this changes anything. The company is mine. Evelyn. She'd already blocked my real number and was texting from a different one. I read the message twice, then set the phone back down without responding. The company is mine. For the first time since she left, I smiled. Just a little, just enough to know something had shifted inside me. The company is mine. We'd see about that. The coffee shop was almost empty at 7 in the morning. Just me, Thomas, and a couple of college kids studying in the corner. I liked it that way. Quiet, private, no chance of running into anyone from Evelyn's world. Thomas Reed looked the same as always, mid-40s, graying at the temples, wire-rimmed, glasses. He wore a simple blue button-down and khakis, nothing flashy. That was Thomas, the kind of man who moved millions of dollars around without anyone noticing. He slid a folder across the table toward me. "I pulled everything you asked for," he said, keeping his voice low. "Company financials, board structure, debt obligations, shareholder agreements. It's all there." I opened the folder and started reading. Numbers. Lots of numbers. But Thomas had organized them in a way that made sense even to me. "Talk me through it," I said. Thomas took a sip of his black coffee. "Hart Industries is in trouble. Not public trouble. Not yet. But trouble. Richard Cole convinced the board to expand aggressively over the past year. New offices, new technology, new markets. He sold them on growth. And he overextended, way overextended." Thomas pulled out a specific page and pointed to a line of numbers. "They're carrying $70 million in debt, most of it short-term, due within 18 months. I whistled low. $70 million. The revenue's there to support it, barely. But one bad quarter, one major client loss, and the whole thing could collapse." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "Richard knows this. That's why he's been cutting costs. Layoffs, reduced benefits, outsourcing." I thought about what I'd seen at work over the past few months. Good people getting let go. People who'd been there for years. Security guards, cleaning staff, IT workers, all gone. All replaced by cheaper contractors. "Evelyn's on board with this?" I asked. Thomas hesitated. "Evelyn is complicated. She's technically the majority shareholder through her family trust, but she gave Richard operational control. My guess? She was focused on other things." He didn't say, "focused on her affair," but we both knew that's what he meant. I flipped through more pages, saw names I recognized, board members, investors, and then I saw something that made me stop. "What's this?" I pointed to a section labeled Outstanding Contracts. Thomas smiled. "Just a little." That's the interesting part. Hart Industries relies heavily on third-party contractors for facilities management, security systems, and building maintenance. Those contracts are worth about $12 million annually. Okay? Those contracts are held by a company called Vertex Solutions. I looked up at him. "Never heard of it." "You wouldn't have. It's a holding company, very discreet. But if you dig through the paperwork, and I did, you'll find that Vertex Solutions is wholly owned by the Naomi Hill Family Trust. My mom's trust. The trust that held my grandfather's money. The trust I'd been contributing to for 5 years without touching a penny." "I own those contracts?" I asked slowly. "You and your sister, technically. But your mom has signing authority and she already gave you approval to act on behalf of the trust." Thomas tapped the folder. "Marcus, you control the infrastructure of that entire building. HVAC, security access, electrical systems, plumbing, fire safety, all of it." I sat back in my chair, my coffee forgotten. "How did this happen?" I asked. "I don't remember setting this up." "Your grandfather did, before he died." Thomas's voice softened. "He knew you'd end up working in facilities. He knew you were good at it. So he created Vertex Solutions as a shell company and started bidding on contracts. Small ones at first, then bigger ones. By the time Hart Industries needed a facilities contractor 5 years ago, Vertex was the most qualified and the cheapest. Evelyn doesn't know. Nobody knows. The contracts were signed by your grandfather's lawyer. Your name never appeared on any paperwork. You were just the guy they sent to do the work." I let that sink in. All those years I'd been crawling through vents and fixing broken pipes. I'd been working for myself, my own company, paying myself a modest salary while the real money went back into the trust. Grandpa had set me up, protected me, even from beyond the grave. What are you thinking? Thomas asked. I looked at the numbers again, at the debt, at the dependencies, at how fragile everything really was. I'm thinking Richard Cole made a lot of mistakes, I said quietly. And I'm thinking those mistakes just became my opportunity. Thomas nodded slowly. If you wanted to acquire controlling interest in Hart Industries, now would be the time. The company's vulnerable. The debt is manageable if you restructure. And you've got leverage they don't even know about. How much would it cost? Thomas pulled out another document. I ran the numbers. With the debt factored in, current market conditions, and the company's declining performance, you could acquire 51% for approximately 40 million. Maybe less if you negotiate well. 40 million. I had access to maybe 3 million liquid. The rest was tied up in investments and the trust. I don't have that kind of money, I said. Not yet. But you have collateral. You have the contracts. You have relationships with other investors who trust me. Thomas leaned forward. I can structure a deal. Quietly. Use private equity. Keep your name off everything until the moment we need it. Why would you do this for me? Thomas took off his glasses and cleaned them with his napkin. Your grandfather was a good man. He saved every penny he made and invested it wisely. Not for himself, for you, for your future. Your mother asked me to help protect that future, and that's what I'm doing. He put his glasses back on and looked me straight in the eye. But I need to know something, Marcus. Why do you want this? Is it revenge? Because if it is, I'll walk away right now. Revenge is expensive and it rarely ends well. I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Was this revenge? Maybe part of it was. Part of me wanted Evelyn to feel what I felt, wanted her to know what it's like to lose something you thought was yours forever. But that wasn't all of it. She called me replaceable, I said quietly. Not to my face, but I heard her last week. She was on a call in her office and I was fixing the thermostat. She said, Marcus is replaceable. They all are. Thomas didn't say anything. I spent 6 years trying to fit into her world, trying to be good enough, trying to be the kind of man she could be proud of. I closed the folder. But I was never the problem. She was. She looked at people like me, people who work with their hands, people who come from nothing, and she saw us as less than. And you want to prove her wrong? No, I shook my head. I want to prove myself right. I want to build something, own something, be something. Not for her, for me. Thomas studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, he said. Then, let's get to work. Over the next 2 days, I barely slept. Thomas connected me with 3 private investors, people he'd worked with for years. They reviewed the numbers, asked questions, made calls. By Thursday evening, we had commitments for 35 million in financing. I'd put up 5 million from the trust. Together, it was enough. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. Thomas had a contact on the board, an older woman named Patricia Chen, who'd been skeptical of Richard's expansion from the start. She agreed to support our proposal if we could guarantee stability and no mass layoffs. I agreed. This wasn't about destroying the company, it was about fixing it. Friday morning, I went to work like normal, put on my uniform, grabbed my tools, walked into Hart Industries like I'd done 1,000 times before. Evelyn was in the lobby when I arrived. She was laughing at something Richard said, her hand on his arm. She looked happy, relaxed, free. She didn't see me. I was invisible to her now, just part of the background. I took the service elevator up to the 15th floor and started my rounds, checked the HVAC systems, replaced some filters, fixed a leaking pipe in the executive bathroom. Lena Brooks, Evelyn's assistant, found me around noon. She was a quiet woman, late 20s, always professional. She'd been kind to me over the years, never condescending, never dismissive. Marcus, she said carefully, can I talk to you? Sure. I wiped my hands on my pants. What's up? She looked around to make sure we were alone. I saw something strange in the system yesterday. Access permissions being updated, security protocols changing. It all got approved automatically, but the authorization codes were unusual. My heart rate picked up, but I kept my face neutral. Unusual how? They came from Vertex Solutions. I'd never heard of them before, so I looked them up. They hold all our facilities contracts. She paused. Do you know anything about that company? I met her eyes. Lena was smart. She'd already connected some dots. Why are you asking me? I said. Because you're the only facilities person who's been here since those contracts were signed, and because I think something's about to happen. She lowered her voice. I'm not trying to cause problems. I just want to know if I should be worried about my job. I made a decision in that moment. Lena had always been good to me. She deserved honesty. Your job is safe, I said. Whatever happens next, you'll be fine, I promise. She searched my face, then nodded slowly. Okay, thank you. She walked away, and I went back to work. That night, I authorized the final access update. Every keycard in the building would be reprogrammed on Monday morning at 6 a.m. New protocols, new permissions, all controlled by Vertex Solutions. By me. I drove home, not to the condo, but to the small apartment I'd rented across town. One bedroom, basic furniture, nothing fancy, but it was mine, paid for with my own money, no strings attached. I made dinner, watched TV, and went to bed early. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. Monday morning came cold and gray. I was at the office by 5:30 a.m., watching from my truck as employees started arriving. 6 a.m. hit. The access system updated. I watched Richard's car pull into his reserved spot at 6:15. He got out, coffee in hand, and walked toward the executive entrance. Swiped his card. Red light. Access denied. He swiped again. Same result. I saw him pull out his phone, probably calling security. But security couldn't help him. Their cards weren't working either. By 6:30, a small crowd had gathered at the front doors. Employees confused, security guards apologetic, everyone locked out. Everyone except the people I'd specifically authorized. Thomas, Patricia Chen, the three investors, and me. I got out of my truck and walked toward the building. Lena was standing near the doors, her card in her hand. She saw me coming and understanding dawned on her face. I swiped my card. Green light. The door unlocked. I held it open for her. Come on, I said. We've got work to do. She hesitated for just a second, then walked through. The lobby was empty except for one security guard I'd personally authorized. He nodded at me and said nothing. I took the main elevator up to the 22nd floor, the executive level, Evelyn's floor. The boardroom was already occupied when I arrived. Thomas, Patricia, the investors, and three other board members Patricia had convinced to come early. Gentlemen, ma'am, I said walking in, thank you for being here. Patricia gestured to a chair. Mr. Hill, please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. For the next hour, we talked numbers, structure, strategy. The board members asked hard questions, and Thomas had good answers. I stayed mostly quiet, letting the professionals handle the details. Finally, Patricia looked at me directly. Mr. Hill, I need to understand your intentions. If we approve this acquisition, what happens to the current leadership? Richard Cole will be removed as CEO, I said simply. He's made reckless decisions that put this company at risk. That ends today. And Evelyn Hart-Hill? I paused, took a breath. Mrs. Hart-Hill will remain a shareholder, but she'll no longer have operational control. Those decisions will be made by a new board, a better board. And you, what role do you see yourself in? None, I said. I'm not qualified to run this company day to day, but I'll own it, and I'll make sure it's run right." Patricia smiled slightly. "That's a refreshingly honest answer." She looked around the table. "All in favor?" Every hand went up. "Then it's settled," Patricia said. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Hill." By 8 a.m., the whole building knew something was wrong. Employees were gathered in the lobby, waiting for answers. Richard was on his phone, yelling at someone. Evelyn had arrived and was standing next to him, her face tight with confusion. I watched from the 22nd floor window as Thomas went down to make the announcement. He didn't sugarcoat it, told them there'd been a change in ownership, told them operations would continue normally, told them to go to their desks and wait for further instructions. Richard's face went red. He started toward the elevators, but his card still didn't work. Evelyn looked up at the building, her eyes scanning the windows like she was searching for answers. I stepped back from the glass. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "What did you do?" I didn't respond, just turned off my phone and walked back to the boardroom. There was work to do. Real work. The kind that mattered. And for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't doing it for someone else. I was doing it for me. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Lawyers arrived. Accountants set up shop in the conference room. Thomas moved between offices like a conductor managing an orchestra, calm, precise, in control. I stayed mostly in the background, watching, learning, signing documents when Thomas told me to. By noon, Richard Cole had been officially removed from his position. Security escorted him from the building. I wasn't there to see it happen, but Lena told me about it later. She said he went quietly, which surprised her. No yelling, no threats, just a slow walk to his car with a box of personal items. Maybe he knew there was no point fighting, or maybe he was already calculating his next move. Either way, he was gone. Evelyn was a different story. She'd spent the morning making calls, trying to reach board members, trying to understand what was happening. But no one would talk to her. Patricia had made it clear this was business, not personal. The decision was final. Around 2 p.m., I was in Thomas's temporary office reviewing some contracts when Lena knocked on the door. "Marcus," she said quietly, "Mrs. Harthill is asking to see you." Thomas looked up from his laptop. "You don't have to talk to her. Not today. Not ever, if you don't want to." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to avoid her, wanted to let her sit with the confusion and anger, let her feel powerless for once. But another part of me, the part that still remembered loving her, knew I needed to face this. "Where is she?" I asked. "Her office." I stood up. "I'll go." Thomas gave me a warning look. "Be careful. Don't say anything that could be used against you later." I nodded and left. The executive floor felt different now. Quieter. Like the building itself knew something had changed. I walked past empty offices and closed doors until I reached Evelyn's corner office. The door was open. She was standing by the window, looking out at the city. Her back was to me, but I could see her reflection in the glass. Her face was pale, tight, her jaw clenched. "Evelyn," I said from the doorway. She didn't turn around. "Come in, close the door." I did. But I didn't sit down, just stood there, waiting. "Is it true?" she asked, still facing the window. "Do you own this company now?" "I own 51%, I said. "The board approved it this morning." She laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. "Marcus Hill, the maintenance man, the guy who fixed toilets and changed light bulbs." She finally turned to face me. "You own Hart Industries." "I do." Her blue eyes were cold, hard. "How? How did you even—" She stopped herself. "The contracts, Vertex Solutions. That's you." "That was my grandfather, actually. He set it up before he died." "Your grandfather." She said it like a curse. The janitor. Yes, the janitor. I kept my voice level. He worked hard his whole life, saved his money, invested smart, and he left it to me, to protect me, to give me opportunities. And you used it to steal my company. I didn't steal anything, Evelyn. I bought it, fair and square. You and Richard made bad decisions, put the company in debt, made it vulnerable. I just took advantage of that. She walked toward me, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. You did this because I left you. This is revenge. No, I said firmly. This is business. This is me taking control of my life, building something that matters by destroying mine. I looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd cooked dinner for every night, the woman I'd bent myself into shapes trying to please. I didn't destroy anything, I said quietly. You did that yourself. Her hand came up fast. For a second, I thought she might hit me, but she stopped herself, her palm hovering in the air between us. I loved you, she whispered. I did, in the beginning. I know. But you weren't enough. You weren't, she struggled for words. You weren't what I needed. I know that too. She dropped her hand. So what happens now? You fire me, humiliate me, make me beg? No, I shook my head. You keep your shares. You keep your office, but you don't run this company anymore. That part's over. Just like that. Just like that. She studied my face, searching for something. Anger, maybe. Satisfaction. But I didn't give her anything. Just stood there, calm and steady. I underestimated you, she said finally. Yeah, you did. Everyone did. I know. She walked back to her desk and sat down, suddenly looking tired, small. Does it feel good? Getting your revenge? This isn't revenge, Evelyn. Revenge would be loud, public, mean. This is just me taking back control of my life. I moved toward the door. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I really do. But you won't find it here. Not anymore. I left before she could respond. That evening, I drove to my mom's house. She was in the kitchen making soup when I arrived. The windows steamed up from the pot on the stove. Hey, baby, she said, not looking up from chopping vegetables. You hungry? Starving. Good. Sit down. This'll be ready in 20 minutes. I sat at the small kitchen table and watched her work. She moved with practiced ease, adding ingredients without measuring, tasting without hesitation. She'd been making this soup my whole life, knew it by heart. How'd it go today? She asked casually. It went. That's all you're gonna tell me? I own a company now. She smiled. I know. Thomas called me this morning, said everything went through clean. You're not surprised. Baby? I helped set this up. Of course I'm not surprised. She stirred the pot. I'm proud, though. Proud you had the courage to do it. Grandpa would have liked this, huh? Your grandpa would have loved this. Mom turned to face me. He spent his whole life being invisible, being overlooked. People saw the uniform and the mop, and that's all they saw. Never saw the man underneath. The smart, careful, brilliant man who built something from nothing. She wiped her hands on her apron. He did all of this. The trust, the company, the contracts, so you wouldn't have to be invisible. So you'd have choices, power, freedom. She pointed her wooden spoon at me. But he also taught you to be smart about it, quiet about it. Let people underestimate you until the moment it matters. Did you know Evelyn would leave? Mom hesitated. I knew she wasn't built for forever. I hoped I was wrong. But no, baby, I wasn't surprised. We were quiet for a minute. The soup bubbled on the stove. Do you think I did the right thing? I asked. Do you think you did the right thing? I asked you first. Mom laughed. Marcus, I can't answer that for you. Only you know what's in your heart. Only you know if you did this from a place of strength or a place of hurt. I thought about that. Really thought about it. Both, maybe, I admitted. I was hurt. I am hurt. But I also saw an opportunity to build something real. Something mine. Then you did the right thing. Mom turned back to the stove. Just don't let the hurt drive your next moves. That's when people make mistakes. The next few weeks settled into a strange routine. I went to the office every day, but not as a facilities worker, as an owner. Thomas had hired a management team to handle daily operations. My job was to learn, observe, and make big decisions when needed. It was weird. Walking into the building through the front doors instead of the service entrance, taking the main elevator instead of the freight elevator, having people hold doors for me and say, "Good morning, Mr. Hill," instead of just ignoring me. Some employees looked at me with suspicion, some with curiosity, a few with respect. Richard was gone, vanished completely. I heard through the grapevine that he'd taken a position with a company in Seattle, moved across the country. Smart move, really. No point sticking around where everyone knew you'd failed. Evelyn was still there, though. She came to the office 3 or 4 days a week, kept her executive title, attended some meetings, but she'd been pushed to the edges, and she knew it. We passed each other in hallways sometimes. She'd nod, I'd nod. That was it. No words, no drama. I think she was embarrassed, not because of the business stuff. That was just money and power, things she understood, but because she'd been so wrong about me, had looked at me for 6 years and never really seen me. That had to hurt. At least, I hoped it did. Lena became my unofficial guide to the corporate world. She taught me which meetings mattered and which ones didn't, helped me understand office politics, explained who I could trust and who I couldn't. "You're good at this," she told me one afternoon. We were reviewing some reports in my new office, a modest space on the 20th floor. The ownership thing, being in charge. "I don't feel like I am," I admitted. "Half the time I'm just trying not to mess up." "That's what makes you good at it. The people who think they know everything, they're dangerous." She closed her laptop. "You listen. You ask questions. You admit when you don't know something. That's rare." "Thanks, Lena. I mean it." She stood up. "And for what it's worth, I'm glad it's you. Better you than Richard. Better you than—" She trailed off. "Then Evelyn?" Lena looked uncomfortable. "I shouldn't talk about her." "It's okay. She's not your boss anymore. Not really." "She was never a bad boss," Lena said carefully. "Just distant. Like the rest of us were chess pieces, not people. You don't make people feel that way." After she left, I sat alone in my office for a while, thinking about that, about how Evelyn saw people as pieces to move around, how Richard saw people as assets to use up. I didn't want to be like them, didn't want power to change me into something cold and calculating. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Can we talk? Please." E. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, wanted to leave her sitting with her questions and regrets. Part of me was curious what she wanted to say, but mostly, I was tired. Tired of thinking about her. Tired of carrying the weight of what we used to be. I typed back, "There's nothing to talk about." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I was wrong about you." I almost laughed. Almost. But instead, I just felt sad. Sad for both of us. Sad for what we could have been if she'd just seen me, really seen me. "I know," I typed back, "but that doesn't change anything." This time, she didn't respond. A month after the takeover, I was sitting in my apartment on a Friday night, eating takeout and watching a game, when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole. Evelyn. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, no makeup, hair down. I'd never seen her look so normal, so not put together. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can I come in? Just for a few minutes?" I wanted to say no, wanted to close the door and go back to my quiet evening. But something in her face, something vulnerable and broken, made me step aside. She walked in slowly, looking around at my small apartment. The secondhand couch, the cheap coffee table, the TV I'd bought at a discount store. "This is where you've been living?" she asked. "Yeah, it's so." She stopped herself. "Small? Cheap? Not good enough?" I crossed my arms. "You can say it." I was going to say simple. She turned to face me. "In a good way. It feels honest." I didn't know what to say to that. She sat down on the couch without asking. I stayed standing. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, "about us, about what happened, about what I did. Okay, I was cruel to you. I know that now. I treated you like you were less than me, like you needed to be fixed or improved or shaped into someone else." Her voice cracked slightly. "And you never deserved that." "No," I agreed. "I didn't. I told myself I was helping you, making you better, but really I was just ashamed. Ashamed of where you came from, ashamed of what people might think, ashamed of myself for caring what they thought." She looked down at her hands. "My mother hated you. Did you know that? From the day we met, she said you were too common, too working class, too—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Too black," I said quietly. She flinched. "Yes, that too." I sat down in the chair across from her. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I lost everything, Marcus. Not the company, I don't care about that. But I lost myself. I became someone I hate, someone cold and mean and empty." Tears started running down her face. "And I lost you, the one person who actually loved me." "I did love you," I said, "more than anything. And I threw it away. For what? For Richard? For status? For the approval of people who don't even matter?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I came here to apologize, not to ask for anything back. I know that's over. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry." I watched her cry, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just a quiet, distant sadness. "Thank you for saying that," I said finally. "But Evelyn, an apology doesn't fix this. Doesn't undo 6 years of feeling small, of feeling like I wasn't good enough." "I know. You made me doubt myself, made me think I was the problem. And even now, even after everything, part of me still wonders if you're right, if I'm not enough." "You're more than enough," she whispered. "You always were." "Then why couldn't you see it when it mattered?" She had no answer for that. And honestly, I didn't need one. The question wasn't for her. It was for me. A reminder that her blindness was her problem, not mine. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then she stood up. "I should go," she said. I walked her to the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I hope you find someone who sees you the way you deserve to be seen. Someone who loves you without trying to change you." "Yeah," I said. "Me too." She left, and I closed the door behind her. Then I went back to my couch, picked up my dinner, and finished watching the game. 3 months passed. Spring turned into summer. The city got hotter, busier, louder. Life moved forward the way it always does, whether you're ready or not. Heart industries stabilized under new management. We restructured the debt, renegotiated contracts, brought back some of the employees Richard had let go. The company wasn't thriving yet, but it was breathing. That was enough for now. I learned more about business in those 3 months than I had in my entire life. Thomas was a patient teacher, and Patricia Chen became an unexpected mentor. She'd been running companies since before I was born, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. "You're doing fine," she told me one afternoon in my office. "Better than fine, actually." You listen more than you talk. That's rare in this world. I'm still figuring it out, I admitted. We're all still figuring it out. Anyone who tells you different is lying. She stood up to leave. Just don't lose what makes you different, Marcus. Don't become like the rest of them. I'll try not to, she smiled. Good, because this company doesn't need another Richard Cole. It needs someone who remembers what it's like to work for a living. After she left, I sat at my desk and looked out the window at the city below. All those buildings, all those people, everyone fighting their own battles, carrying their own weight. I thought about Evelyn sometimes, wondered how she was doing, heard through Lena that she'd taken a leave of absence, was traveling, apparently. Europe, then Asia, trying to find herself, people said. I hoped she did. I really did. Not for me, for her, because I'd learned something important over the past few months. Hurt people, and Evelyn had been hurt long before she met me. Hurt by her family's expectations, hurt by a mother who measured love in status and appearances, hurt by a world that told her worth came from power and control. That didn't excuse what she did to me, but it helped me understand it. And understanding brought peace, even if it didn't bring forgiveness. One Saturday morning in July, I was at my mom's house helping her fix the porch railing when my sister called. Marcus, turn on the TV, channel 7. Why? Just do it. Mom and I went inside. I found the remote and flipped to channel 7. It was a business news segment, and there on the screen was a picture of Richard Cole. The headline below read, Former Tech CEO Arrested for Securities Fraud. I turned up the volume. Richard Cole, former CEO of Hart Industries, was taken into custody this morning following an 18-month investigation into fraudulent financial reporting. Prosecutors allege Cole deliberately inflated revenue projections and concealed debt obligations to attract investors. If convicted, he faces up to 20 years in prison. Mom sat down slowly on the couch. Lord, have mercy. My phone started buzzing. Thomas, then Patricia, then 3 other board members. I answered Thomas's call. Are you seeing this? He asked. Yeah, I'm watching it now. Marcus, this is big. The investigators are going through Hart Industries records from Cole's tenure. They'll want to talk to you, to the board, to everyone. We didn't do anything wrong, I said. I know, but they'll still ask questions. Lots of them. He paused. This could actually help us, though. If we cooperate fully, show we've cleaned house and implemented new protocols, it proves we're moving in the right direction. Okay, tell me what to do. We talked for another 10 minutes, then I hung up and called Patricia. She was already on top of it, coordinating with our lawyers, preparing statements. This doesn't touch you, she assured me. You weren't even an owner when Cole was running things. You're clean. What about Evelyn? Patricia hesitated. That depends on what she knew. If she was willfully ignorant, she might face civil penalties. But criminal charges? Unlikely, unless they can prove she actively participated in the fraud. I thought about Evelyn sitting in her office, focused on her affair with Richard while he cooked the books. She probably had no idea what he was doing, but her ignorance had consequences. Keep me updated, I told Patricia. Will do. The news exploded over the next week. Richard's arrest was everywhere. TV, newspapers, social media. People dug up old interviews where he'd talked about aggressive growth strategies, found quotes that looked damning in hindsight. Hart Industries got pulled into the story, of course, but Patricia handled it brilliantly. She released a statement explaining that current ownership had discovered irregularities, cooperated with investigators, and implemented comprehensive reforms. The message was clear. The problem was Richard, not the company, and the company was under new management now. My name stayed out of it, mostly. A few articles mentioned private investors and new leadership, but nobody connected the dots back to me. I preferred it that way. Didn't need the attention. Didn't want it. Evelyn's name came up a lot, though. The press loved the angle. Beautiful heiress, powerful CEO boyfriend, corporate scandal. They camped outside her family's estate, outside the office building, anywhere they thought she might appear. But she never did. She was still overseas somewhere, according to Lena. Her lawyer released a brief statement saying she was cooperating with authorities and had no knowledge of Cole's fraudulent activities. I believed her. Evelyn had a lot of faults, but she wasn't a criminal. Just someone who'd made bad choices and trusted the wrong person. Still, the scandal destroyed what was left of her reputation. The same society that had once celebrated her now tore her apart, called her naive, reckless, a failure. I didn't take pleasure in it. If anything, I felt a distant kind of sympathy. She'd spent her whole life chasing approval from people who didn't really care about her. And now, those same people were the ones throwing stones. By August, the investigation had moved beyond Hart Industries. Richard had been involved in multiple schemes, apparently. Other companies, other victims. The prosecutors were building a case that would take years to fully prosecute. I stopped following it closely. It wasn't my story anymore. Instead, I focused on the company, on making it better. We launched a new employee wellness program, increased wages for our lowest paid workers, started a scholarship fund for children of employees who wanted to go to college. The board pushed back on some of it, said it was too expensive, too idealistic. But I held firm. This company was built on the backs of people who worked hard for not enough money. That changes now. Patricia supported me. So did Thomas. And eventually, the board came around. The company started to feel different, lighter, like we'd cleared out something toxic and let fresh air in. Employees noticed, started smiling more, talking to me in the hallways, thanking me for the changes. It felt good, really good, better than revenge ever could have. One evening in late September, I was walking through the parking garage when I saw a familiar car parked near the entrance. Evelyn's car. A white Tesla. Pristine and perfect, just like everything else in her life used to be. I slowed down, debating whether to keep walking or wait to see if she appeared. Before I could decide, she came around the corner. She looked different, thinner, tired. Her blonde hair was shorter now, cut to her shoulders. She wore simple clothes, jeans, a plain shirt, no jewelry. She stopped when she saw me. For a long moment, we just stood there in the concrete dimness of the garage. "Marcus," she said finally, "Evelyn, I heard about the changes you made, the programs, the scholarships." She managed a small smile. "That's really good. Really, you. Thanks. I'm leaving," she said abruptly. "Leaving the company. Leaving the city, actually. I signed the paperwork this morning. My shares are being transferred to a trust. You'll have full control now." I didn't know what to say to that. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Somewhere quiet. Maybe the coast. Maybe just away." She looked down at her keys. "I need to figure out who I am without all of this. Without the company, without the money, without people telling me who I'm supposed to be." "That's probably smart." "Yeah." She looked back up at me. "I've been thinking about what you said that night at your apartment, about how I made you feel small." "Evelyn!" "No, let me finish." She took a shaky breath. "You were right, I did that, and I can't take it back, but I can make sure I never do it to anyone else. I can become someone better." "I hope you do," I said, and I meant it. "I never thanked you, you know, for not destroying me completely. You could have. You had every right to, but you didn't. That's not who I am. I know. That's what makes you—" She stopped herself. "Anyway, thank you for everything, for the years we had, for letting me go, for being kind when you didn't have to be." She walked past me toward her car, then paused. I loved you, Marcus. I know I didn't show it the right way. I know I hurt you, but I did love you. Maybe not enough, maybe not right, but I did. I know, I said quietly. She got in her car and drove away. I stood there in the garage for a few minutes, watching her taillights disappear into the evening traffic. Then I got in my truck and drove home. The weeks that followed were the quietest I'd had in months. Work continued, the company continued, life continued. I fell into a routine that felt sustainable: mornings at the gym, days at the office, evenings with my mom or my sister, or sometimes just alone, reading or watching TV. I went on a couple of dates, nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with women Lena or Patricia tried to set me up with. They were nice, smart, accomplished, but I wasn't ready yet, still healing, still figuring out who I was outside of being Evelyn's husband. That was okay. I had time. One Saturday morning in October, I was at my mom's house again. We were planting flowers in her front yard. She wanted mums, orange and yellow ones that would last through fall. You seem lighter, she said, digging a hole for one of the plants. Yeah? Yeah, like you've been carrying a heavy bag for years and finally put it down. I thought about that. Maybe I have. Good. She patted soil around the mum. You deserve to feel light, baby. You deserve to be happy. I am happy, or getting there anyway. What's next for you? She asked. Now that you've got the company settled, now that you've moved on from Evelyn, what do you want? I sat back on my heels, looking at the neat row of flowers we'd planted. I don't know. Maybe that's okay for now, just not knowing. That's very okay. Mom smiled. You're only 32 years old. You've got time to figure it out. We finished planting and went inside for lunch. Mom made sandwiches while I washed up. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Heads up. Board meeting moved to Tuesday. Patricia wants to discuss expansion plans. She thinks you're ready to take on more. I smiled, typed back, Okay, I'll be there. Mom handed me a sandwich. Work? Yeah, they want me more involved in strategic planning. You gonna do it? I think so. Feels like the right time. Then it probably is. She took a bite of her sandwich. Your grandpa would be so proud of you, Marcus. Not because you own a company, but because you stayed true to yourself, even when it was hard, even when you could have become something cold and mean. You stayed good. My throat tightened. I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. That night, I drove through the city with no destination in mind, just drove like I used to do when things got heavy. I passed the condo building where Evelyn and I used to live. Someone else lived there now. The lights were on in our old apartment. I wondered if they were happy, if they fought or laughed or cooked dinner together. I kept driving, past Hart Industries headquarters. The building was dark except for a few security lights. I'd be back there Tuesday, back to work, back to building something that mattered. I kept driving, past my old apartment, past my sister's house, past the coffee shop where Thomas and I had that first meeting. Finally, I ended up at a park overlooking the river. I parked and got out, walking to the railing at the edge of the water. The city lights reflected on the dark surface. Boats moved slowly downstream. The air was cool and smelled like autumn. I stood there for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened: the betrayal, the pain, the quiet revenge that wasn't really revenge at all, just taking back what was mine. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out, expecting another work message, but it was from an unknown number. I saw what you did with the company, the scholarship program. My cousin's daughter got one. She's the first in our family to go to college. Thank you. A former employee. I read the message 3 times. Then I put my phone away and looked back out at the water. This was the point. Not hurting Evelyn, not taking over the company, not proving I was more than people thought. It was this: making things better, helping people who needed it, building something that mattered beyond money and power. I thought about my grandfather, about him mopping floors and cleaning bathrooms while building a fortune in silence. He never needed recognition, never needed applause. He just needed to know he was making a difference. I understood that now. I stayed at the park for another hour, watching the city breathe and shift in the darkness. Then I got in my truck and drove home. Monday morning, I woke up early, made coffee, read the news, got dressed. Before I left for work, I took off my wedding ring, the one I'd been carrying in my pocket since the day Evelyn left, and put it in a drawer. Not throwing it away, not making a dramatic statement, just putting it somewhere safe, somewhere in the past. Then I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. The office was busy when I arrived. People moved through hallways with purpose. Phones rang, meetings started. The company was alive, functioning, growing. I took the elevator to my floor and walked into my office. Lena had already left the day's schedule on my desk: board, meeting prep, strategic planning session, lunch with potential investors, a full day, a good day. I sat down, opened my laptop, and got to work. Outside my window, the city spread out in all directions. Millions of people, millions of stories, everyone trying to find their way. I was just one person in all of that, one story among millions. But it was my story, my life, my choice, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. 6 months later, I was having lunch with my mom and sister when I got the email. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Estate Settlement Notification." I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me open it. Dear Mr. Hill, we represent the estate of Evelyn Marie Hart Hill. Ms. Hart Hill passed away on March 3rd following a single-car accident in Northern California. As her former spouse and designated beneficiary in her updated will, you are entitled to receive certain personal effects and a letter, Ms. Hart Hill wrote before her death. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to arrange delivery. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the table. Marcus? Mom reached across and grabbed my arm. Baby, what's wrong? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Evelyn was dead. My sister picked up my phone and read the email. Her face went pale. Oh my God! Mom took the phone and read it silently. Then she stood up, came around the table, and wrapped her arms around me. I sat there, numb, while the restaurant buzzed with conversation around us. Evelyn was dead. The letter arrived 3 days later by courier. Along with it came a small box containing a few items: her grandmother's necklace, a photo of us from our wedding day, a journal with a green leather cover. I sat on my couch with the letter in my hands for 20 minutes before I opened it. Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry you have to find out this way. I'm sorry for a lot of things, actually. I've been living in a small town in Northern California for the past few months. It's quiet here, simple, the kind of place where people don't care who you used to be or what you used to have. They just care about who you are now. I've been working at a bookstore. Can you imagine? Me working retail. But I love it. I love talking to people about books, recommending stories, seeing their faces light up when they find something perfect. I've been going to therapy too, dealing with a lot. My mom, my childhood, the ways I learned to measure worth. It's hard work, harder than running a company ever was. I think about you a lot, about us, about how badly I failed you. Failed us. I wrote you an apology once before, but I don't think I really understood what I was apologizing for. I do now. I was ashamed of you, Marcus. Not because of anything you did, but because I'd been taught that love meant finding someone who elevated your status, someone who looked good on paper, someone my mother would approve of, and you were none of those things. You were just good, kind, real, and that terrified me, so I tried to change you, tried to make you fit into the boxes I was taught mattered. And when you wouldn't fit, because you couldn't, because those boxes weren't built for someone like you, I punished you for it. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for every correction, every dismissive look, every time I made you feel small or less than or not enough. You were always enough. You were always more than enough. I hope you found happiness. I hope you found someone who sees you the way I should have. Someone who loves you without conditions or caveats. I hope the company is thriving. I hope you're making a difference. And I hope, someday, you can forgive me. Not for my sake, I'll be gone, but for yours. So you can let go of whatever hurt I caused and move forward completely free. Thank you for the years we had. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being kind when I didn't deserve kindness. And thank you for teaching me, in the end, what real strength looks like. It doesn't announce itself, doesn't demand recognition. It just is. You were always the stronger one, Marcus. I just couldn't see it. Take care of yourself. With love and deep regret, Evelyn. I read the letter 3 times. Then, I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. I opened the journal. It was full of entries, months worth, therapy reflections, daily thoughts, small observations about life in her new town. The last entry was dated 2 days before she died. I saw a man today who reminded me of Marcus. Same quiet confidence, same gentle way of moving through the world. It made me smile, made me sad, made me grateful. I'm learning to be grateful for what I had instead of mourning what I lost. It's progress. I think I'm finally becoming someone I could be proud of. Someone who might eventually deserve a second chance at happiness. Not with Marcus. That ship has sailed, and rightfully so. But with myself, with life, that's enough. That has to be enough. I closed the journal and set it aside. Then, I sat in the silence of my apartment and let myself feel everything. The grief, the anger, the sadness, the waste of it all. Evelyn had finally figured it out, had finally become the person she was meant to be, and then she was gone. The funeral was small, just her family and a few close friends. I debated going, but ultimately decided I needed to, for closure, for peace. Her mother was there, looking older and frailer than I remembered. She didn't acknowledge me, didn't even look in my direction. That was fine. I wasn't there for her. After the service, I stood by Evelyn's grave for a while. The headstone was simple, just her name and dates, no quotes or verses. I forgive you, I said quietly. I don't know if that matters now, but I forgive you. I walked back to my truck and drove home. Life moved on the way it always does. The company continued to grow. We expanded into new markets, hired more people, made a real difference in people's lives. I dated someone seriously for a while, a teacher named Angela who made me laugh and challenged me to be better. It didn't work out long term, but it was good while it lasted. Taught me I could trust again, love again. I stayed close with my mom and sister, had dinner with them every Sunday, listened to their stories, told them mine. I thought about Evelyn sometimes, wondered what her life would have looked like if she'd had more time, if she'd stayed in that bookstore, kept going to therapy, kept building that new version of herself. But I didn't dwell on it, didn't let it consume me. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine. And in the end, we both got what we needed, just not from each other. On the anniversary of the day she left, I drove out to the park by the river, stood at the same railing where I'd stood that night so long ago. The city looked the same, but I was different, stronger, clearer, more myself than I'd ever been. I pulled out my phone and looked at my calendar. Tomorrow's schedule was full, meetings, decisions, responsibilities. But tonight? Tonight was mine. I drove to my mom's house. She was on the porch when I arrived, like always, waiting. Hey, baby, she said. You hungry? Starving. Good, I made your favorite. We went inside together and she told me about her day while I set the table. We ate dinner and laughed about nothing in particular, and for a few hours, the world was simple and warm and right. Later, driving home, I thought about power, real power, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself or prove anything. I'd learned that power wasn't about control or revenge or making people see you. It was about knowing yourself, trusting yourself, building something that mattered. It was about walking away from things that hurt you and toward things that healed you. It was about staying good, even when the world gave you every reason not to. I parked in front of my apartment and sat for a moment in the quiet darkness. Then I got out, locked the truck, and walked inside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new opportunities. But tonight, I was at peace, and that was enough. That was everything. The end.